2009, there was a game called Dominion that hit the board game market that basically invented a genre of games called deck builders. And deck builders is a genre of game where you start with a really small deck of cards, and over the course of the game acquire new cards to have, suit your deck strategy that you build throughout the game. And a lot of games copy Dominion to varying degrees of success. Ascension's a successful one that we actually enjoy that copied it quite well. But probably the most unique spin on the deck building genre is Puzzle Strike by Sirlin Games. Now, Puzzle Strike is made by David Sirlin. Now, David Sirlin used to actually do balancing for not only Street Fighter, but also Puzzle Fighter, which is a falling block puzzle game in the Capcom universe. He tried to use Capcom characters for his game. Capcom didn't give permission, so he made his own fighting game universe and created this wonderful game, which is probably, like I said, one of the craziest deck building games you'll ever see. It's actually a deck building game that simulates a puzzle game, that simulates a fighting game, that doesn't actually exist. Are you confused? Well, don't be, because Puzzle Strike's actually really simple to play, even if it does sound complex.
Unlike with most deck building games where you use cards, Puzzle Strike you actually use these cute little chips. And they're just little cardboard chips, and they come in this nice little insert, which my husband loves. So, Puzzle Strike, you have a player board. Here's your player board, and the turns go over 4 different phases. You have your anti-phase, where you literally take a gem and you put it on the board here in your gem pile. Then you have the action phase, where you grab an action chip out of your bag, use this action chip to either get gems out of your gem pile or do other things to your opponents, whatever. Then you have your buy phase after that, and you'll have some little chips with numbers on them. I think they go from 1 to 4. And if you have these, you can use these to buy other chips that will be set out as Brad's setting up right now. And then you have your cleanup phase, where all the ones that you used or didn't use, you clean them up, and then you go into your little bag of chips, and you draw it for your next turn.
See? I told you it was simple. Well, maybe it's a little bit more complicated than that. So let's take a look at each of the 4 phases in a little bit more detail, so you can see basically, really how the game is played. The anti-phase is actually as simple as Emily described it. You literally just have to take a chip, 1 chip from the bank, and just put it into your gem pile. It's important, obviously. You need to have something that you're working towards throughout the game. You got to make sure you keep the gem pile low, because if you ever end your turn with 10 or more gems in your gem pile, you lose the game. During your action phase, you're allowed to play 1 action chip out of your hand. And there's a lot of different types of action chips that are in the game. The first one is going to be the ones you start the game with, and that is one of your character chips. Now, there are 10 different characters in Puzzle Strike, and that's actually one of the coolest things about the game, is that you start with one of these 10 characters, and each one of them has different abilities that they can play, and that actually change their strategy as you go throughout the game, and change your play style, which is something that no other deck builder really has. So that's really cool. And as you can see, if you play this during your main phase, you get to draw 2 chips out of the bag. That's what that symbol means. Certain chips can also be played as reactions to other chips, and they have their desired effect as well when you do that. The next type of chips that you can use are purple chips. And purple chips we're going to cover a little bit later in the review, because they are basically how you flood your opponent's gem pile with gems from your pile. Like I said, we'll talk about that later. Now, there are some action chips that'll let you, get discount prices from the market during your buy phase. Lots of different effects, but there are also action chips that will let you take other actions. So anytime you see an arrow on an action chip, that means that it basically grants you additional actions to use during your action phase. So black arrows mean that you can use any action that you want to. And there's some chips that have colored arrows, and colored arrows mean that you can only use action chips that match up color-wise with the banner that is on the chip itself. So if you see a purple color arrow, that means that you are able to then use a purple chip if you want to later in your turn. So after you perform your action phase and you combo a bunch of chips later, as you go throughout your turn, once that's over, you'll move on to your buy phase.
After the action phase, you have the buy phase, and any chips that you have left in your hand that have a denomination on them, you can use to buy chips in the marketplace. For example, here I have $7 worth of chips. You can use these to buy money chips in higher denominations so that you can get more expensive chips to help you out. You have the puzzle chips, which there are 24 in the game. You randomly select 10 at the beginning of the game. And then, as Brad was talking about, you have your purple chips. And the purple chips help you to get gems out of your gem pile and into your opponent's gem pile. Now, each buy phase, you have to buy something. And if you have no money left over whatsoever, there is one chip that you can buy. Unfortunately, it is a wound. And wounds do nothing, as we know. And this chip says, this does nothing. So, I mean, all it does is just junk up your gem pile for later in the game. Lastly, we have the cleanup phase, where you literally take all the chips that you played during your turn and you put them in your discard pile, like so. And then you draw a new hand. Now, how many chips you draw is based on how many gems are in your gem pile. So if you look down here, it tells you if you have 0 to 2, you draw 5, 3 to 5, you draw 6, and so forth and so on. Unfortunately, if you have more than 10, like Brad said earlier, game over, you're done, end of story.
So throughout the game, you basically need purple gems in order to win. So there's a couple different types of purple gems, but the most two basic ones are going to be combined gems and crash gems. Now, combined gems are an action gem that you can play on your turn, and as you can see, it has an effect, but it also gives you another action, so they're great combo chips that you can use later on in the game. So when you play a combined chip, you play the action chip, and you can take 2 gems out of your gem pile and combine them together into a larger gem. Now, 2 1s will become a 2. If you play another combined gem, you can take a 2 and a 1 and make it into a 3. Now, why would you want to make your gems bigger? Well, obviously it makes your gem pile have left gems in it, which is a really good idea, but it's also the way you get your opponents. So this crash gem that I mentioned before, this is the most basic way that you send gems over to your opponent's gem pile. You use these during your action phase, and you take a crash gem and you crash it on a gem in your gem pile. So if I were to crash this one gem, I would take it and send it over to Emily's gem pile, thinning my pile out and filling her pile up. But the reason that you want to combine into these larger gems is because when you crash a gem that's bigger than a 1 gem, you don't just send a 3 gem over to your opponent's gem pile. No. You send 3 1 gems over to their gem pile, which is going to bury them in gems as you go along. And what you really want to do is you want to be able to combine gems in your pile to this 4 gem, because normally when you send the gems over to your opponent, if they have a crash gem in their hand or any other chip with a purple shield, they can counter it, so they can crash gems out of their gem pile to basically, knock yours out of the way as well. But if you crash a 4 gem at them, they can't do anything about it. They're taking 4 1 gems in their gem pile, and you're probably going to come pretty close to winning the game.
And that's basically how Puzzle Strike works. Now, obviously, like most deck building games, your deck starts off really simple. It just starts off with some money, you have your character action chips, and then you have a crash gem. And as you go through, you build your deck into this really efficient gem-slinging machine that'll keep your defenses up while burying your opponent in just piles of 1 gems all over their player board. So let's talk about what we think about the game.
Honestly and truthfully, the first couple times I played this game, I did not like it. And while I have played games similar to this, like in video games, and I understood them, I don't think the same strategy applies to this game. So we went away from this, we played a couple other games, and then we came back to this one day, and all of a sudden, it just clicked with me, and I was like, okay, I get it now, and now I love it. It's so much fun, and I'm always excited to show friends of ours, oh, hey, come on, let's play this game.
Yeah, Puzzle Strike for a deck builder is a game that's really cool because you can introduce it to a non-gamer, and they might have a little bit of trouble getting started at first, but it's going to click for them at some point. They're going to see probably about halfway through their first game what they're supposed to be doing, how the strategy works, and it becomes really fun after that. Puzzle Strike is a brilliantly designed game. Like I said, it takes the familiar deck builder formula and it throws a wrinkle on it that's just, it's really interesting. Like, it's really fun to sling gems back and forth to your opponent. Most deck building games have this stigma of being quote-unquote multiplayer solitaire. Puzzle Strike will never be confused with being multiplayer solitaire, never ever. Now, there is a 3 and 4 player variant for this game, but this game was designed to be played with 2 players. That's how it was designed from the ground up. It's, like I said before, it's supposed to simulate a fighting game. This is an excellent 2-player game.
Yes.
How do you think it fares for couples?
Honestly, I love it because if we go back to our first review of Carcassonne, where we end up liking to play Cutthroat, we kind of end up playing that way with this one too. And I just love building up and combining my gems till I get that 4 so I can unleash it on him at the opportune time, and then he gets really mad.
I mean, but but like it's a game where even though you are getting buried, by your opponent, it's still fun. Like it's still really fun to play. It's like I said, the comeback mechanic that's in the game where you get to draw extra chips into your hand when your gem pile gets full. That's great game design. I mean, it makes it so that even if the other player has a substantial lead, you're only one turn away from being able to completely turn the tide. And that happens.
That has happened to us before. Brad has had a full gem pile, and he pulled out these cards, and the next thing I know, he just buried me in gems, and then I lost the game because I couldn't do anything.
All you need to grab, like, combine, and crash, throw the 4-gem across the way at them, and, and basically even the pile out. Like I said, Puzzle Strike's an excellent game. Obviously, we love it. Like, we highly recommend it. When you're done this review, please go to your friendly local area game store. Buy Puzzle Strike. I'm telling you.
Support your local game stores.
Yeah, but I'm serious. Go get Puzzle Strike. If you're a fan of falling block puzzle video games, you're gonna like it. If you're a fan of deck building games, you're gonna love it. It's an excellent game. And again, that would be Puzzle Strike without the glare on the camera by Sirlin Games. Make sure you check it out. And if you really like it, guess what? There's an expansion with 10 new characters and 24 more puzzle chips that you can also mix and match with the base game to basically have a lot of variety. And that's another thing that we didn't really mention. There is so much variety in this game. Again, 24 puzzle chips, you're picking 10 every time. You have 10 different characters to choose from. There's millions of combinations that you can have in this game to make it feel fresh and never feel stale again. So, Puzzle Strike, again, A+ recommendation. Check it out. Thanks for watching again, guys. Once again, we are part of the Nerdpocalypse Studios. Make sure you visit the Nerdpocalypse Studios to see all of our other shows and podcasts. Until next time, see you later.